It's been a rather strange and turbulent week, for the most part. I guess kind of similar to the last video. Well, not entirely similar. I know, like, roughly what I'm going to talk about for this one, considering there's a lot to talk about that's actually transpired. But sorry if my face, I just apologize, sorry if my, I don't know if you can see with the light shining this way, sorry if my face looks a little puffy. Got eaten alive by mosquitoes last night, as I was once again sleeping outside, this time in a proper sleeping bag, and also maybe a tiny little jumping spider bite. I don't know, do jumping spiders bite? Or a spider bite, I'm not sure, it's a little small up here. But I got some more necessities in my trusty backpack here, and fuck off. Screw you, umbrella, you brought me like one use. I got some calamine lotion, or, well, not exactly calamine. Well, actually, I don't know if calamine is the brand, or if it's like or if it's the substance, like compound inside the cream that is anti-itch inflammatory. But whatever, I got anti-itch cream, so yeah. If you can't tell, it's very early in the morning. In fact, actually, I didn't exactly check I checked the time earlier, but unfortunately my watch is set to military time, not civilian time, so it says 18:31. I don't know what that means. I'm going to estimate that's like, what, 7:30 in the morning. Let me actually, why not just check here? That'll be smart of me. Why not do that? It is 6:32 in the morning, so I wasn't exactly extremely off, but yeah, it's very early in the morning. I have not brushed my teeth yet in a public washroom or a foyer washroom of any building. I was going to in a hotel that is right over there across from this rather vacant restaurant parking lot, but I didn't end up doing that because they had to clean it quick. All I did was really wash my face and my hands. But yeah, so first off, I should probably state, probably wondering where the hell am I, considering the last video with me in it, other than, well, the interview with my dear friend Sean Ferguson, where I am. Well, I have, in fact, left Toronto. I am now in Peterborough. Yeah, Peterborough, Ontario. And for those of you who don't know where that is, just look on a paper map or Google map it of Canada, of Ontario, Canada. It's a small city, or small size city in Ontario. I'd actually say it's maybe like, well, actually it borderlines on being like considered a big city or a large city. It's just small enough, I'd say, to be considered, well, a rather minuscule metropolitan area. But yeah, it's that's where I am. Now you may be asking, holy hell, how'd you get up all the way? That didn't make sense, grammar wise. Also, I should also apologize. Sorry if I'm a little bit groggy and my speech is a little slurred. My unfortunately, the last few days, some of my neurological issues, or miscellaneous ones, have been rolling back in. But not extensively, as I'm still taking medication. Probably thinking from the last day with me in it, how did he get all the way up there on that piece of shit bike? That cruiser bike. Well, that's actually because I traded in for something, well, not traded, I bought a different bike. And it's a funny story, actually. Actually, it's a story that culminates in, like, a whole instance of where I am now, so I'll probably just start from there. So, after I recorded the last video, which was in Toronto, in eastern Toronto, in, like, Scarborough district, that area, I went to gather some more necessities, but a lot of stuff was closed, considering it was Victoria Day. But I called up a few more people just to, well, I just called up a few people to let them know about my situation, what I was about to do. And then I had gone back over to my, well, I believe it went, yes. I went back over by my household, that area, and I went to say goodbye to the people there in person, which wasn't the last time that I ended up seeing them, but just in case, so I did. And it was rather somber, I'll say. And so then later in the day, I kind of just meandered around for a while in the area, considering the whole place was basically dead. I mean, like, fuck, on Victoria Day it just turned into, the place basically turned into Ashgabat, Turkmenistan for like 5 whole hours for the rest of the day. And if you don't know, like, the geographical joke that I'm making there, just never mind. So I went back over there to say goodbye. It was somber. It was somberly. It was very, especially with one person who I've had the most difficulties with, I'll say. I was happy that it was actually this for the most part, that it wasn't worse than what it could have been. That worst bit came later, unfortunately. But I'll say it was bittersweet. It was very bittersweet. They actually, I don't know if it was I'm sure it was an attempt to make me stay, of some desperation desire. Well, desperation, that is. To get me to just change my decision making on this. But they gifted me a painting that they had done a few years ago. Actually, probably more so now, a few decades ago. But oh. Blue jay. That's nice. Where was I? Oh yeah, back to misery. So they gifted me that painting, and I was thankful for that, because despite all our disputes, I was thankful that we were able to just at least end it on a summer note. And it was an incredible painting, for as troubled as I'll say this person is and can be. They are a fantastic artist in terms of they're a fantastic painter. And I hope that that's not feeding into their hefty traits of egotism, but one can hope. Because it's very apparent that they have self-esteem issues, as we very much established, if they're watching this, very much established on the last day that I saw you in person. And I've continued to somewhat establish with the array of text messages that they keep dispersing to me. And they've find it ironic, and I know people won't get what I'm talking about because I'm being vague, but it's more so for them if they're watching this. Find it funny how you tend to say that when I was there, I would just vomit, like, cruelty or mean words towards you, and yet you basically just go rapid fire with your text messages in complete sheer utter desperation to try and somehow win me back over. Just literally saying whatever it seems to come to your mind. Like, absolutely, like, contradicting yourself, by the way, and being a total hypocrite in many regards. Just back and forth, which I've complained about before. As well as the fact that, again, repeated gaslighting in the text and pointless guilt tripping that has no basis to it, which is more evident that you are or have bipolar disorder and it's not maintained well. So, and again, that's not a slur. This person even once tried to use saying that I'm using these words as slurs against them. I'm not. I'm trying to tell you what the hell you're doing. It's very evident. Like, God. So that you actually try and seek help for it. Because I can't do anything more. But we've already gone over this in another video. 2 videos. But, anyway, goodbye was somber. And then for the rest, as I was heading out, I was basically going to spend the rest of the day, like, finding a place to sleep for the night in the city. Then I got a call back from one of my friends who, I was saying goodbye, or I left a message to say goodbye to. And they talked me through a lot of stuff that, and their perspective on, like, their situation in life, and I'll just say this, they live in a very, and if they're watching this, I'm sure they already know this, they live in or at least from my opinion, from what I've seen, that they're fantastic, they're a fantastic person, they're an incredibly brave and strong person, or if they're watching this, but their household is incredibly toxic, in terms of, well, I'll say they're single parent. It's incredibly vulgar, and I don't mean that just like in terms of curse words or swearing. I just mean like the social environment that they're in. But I decided, because they were going to go light off fireworks down by a beach, down by the port in Toronto. Now in recent times, as I've actually been thinking more about it, like in terms of like where I stand, I guess environmentally, I've been having more of an issue with fireworks than in the past. I'm sure there are biodegradable ones, or the ones that are well made and safe for the environment, but then again, that can only go so far to an extent, considering I'm sure there's actual, well, to light the fuse, I think it needs some sort of explosive powder, and I don't exactly, like, is it magnesium? Or the gunpowder, what exactly? I think gunpowder is magnesium, I think. But whatever it is to light it, I'm sure it's not the greatest for the environment. I could be wrong, but I don't know. I'm not a pyrotechnics expert. Pyrotechnics expert. Fuck this missing tooth. Anyway, I have a few issues with it now, but at that point I said fuck it. Considering with how skewed I am with where my values seem to lie, like emotionally, again, logically it's one, but emotionally it's another. Where, I don't know, I just said fuck it then and went. So I wanted to hang out with them as well. And say goodbye to them in person. And, as far as I'm concerned, it was a great time. I got to see another person, well, there physically, that I also wanted to say goodbye to, who I had mostly to say goodbye to over text. This friend of mine, they were high as shit when we were down there. But, no, it was fun. So at the end of the day, we went, I initially ended up going over to their house, and I stayed for a few hours of the night. I biked down there. But along my route to there, I was going down by their house, like just the route they'd given me to get to it. And a man on a motorized bicycle stopped me. Now, if you don't know what I mean by a motorized bicycle, I think you might be probably thinking, okay, am I talking about a motorcycle or a motorized scooter or an electric scooter? Like, what am I talking about? What I mean by motorized bicycle, it's basically a bicycle, a tandem bike of some kind, or just a cyclist bike that's been converted into a motor-powered bicycle. Either by battery, like electrical powered, or gas. Unfortunately, even though, again, environmentally, I wish it would be different, these ones were gas, but he was riding a gas-powered bike, and they're very common. I'm sure some of you know what I'm talking about. They're becoming very much more popular here in Canada, at least in southern, larger cities, especially in Toronto and Mississauga and Oshawa and all that, but they're incredibly common in Central East Asia, more so in India, Sri Lanka, Bangladesh, Pakistan, Nepal, Myanmar, probably as well, I'd say, yeah, probably Bhutan and Tibet, but anyway, they're most common in the world around there, in that area, but basically, it's literally what I described. It's a cyclist bike that's been souped up with a motor of some kind, or an engine, or a battery, depending on whether it takes fossil fuel or renewable energy. And anyway, this man stopped me, and he said, "I noticed that you're struggling on this bike you have, because he's had a few and he knew how tumultuous? No, I don't think that's the right word. How trying, or how extensively tough it can be to actually pedal one of these things. And he was completely correct, because I was also carrying a lot more stuff now, like for food and water and emergency medical kits, or like medical supplies, umbrella, the tripod, clothes, basic just necessities and goods, and also now a sleeping bag that my sibling had gifted to me graciously. And if they're watching, thank you very much for that. And yes, thank you. And so he stopped me and said, I see how much you're struggling. He said, I'm a mechanical engineer, mainly for automotives or like motorized bicycles. And I have a shop here in Toronto, in Eastern Toronto, and I could sell you one so you can get around faster and easier. And he tried giving me his card, but he didn't have one on him, so he just said, look up this said location. And I contemplated it for the next 2 days, because I thought to myself, man, okay, so I weighed the pros and cons. The pros, for this journey that I'm going on for however long it is, that would be really helpful, getting in between different cities and towns and villages, especially in the far out countryside and the very much desolate rural areas of Canada. And it could also potentially, I thought, maybe be easier for me to carry certain things that way. I don't know, because I was basically dangling stuff on the handlebars of the other piece of shit one. And oh, excuse me. And it was not ideal. It was not the greatest. And it can go farther distance in a much shorter amount of time than me just pedaling. And I'd be able to conserve, with the distance I'd be able to go, I could conserve my water and food easier. Like, more between, like, resting stops, to be able to restock. And I could conserve the money that I have, or whatever funds that I have accumulated from my previous job. So, those were the main pros. The cons were, as I would later find out, because I eventually did go to this this dealer, who, by the way, I'm just gonna say, fantastic person. I now am in contact with them constantly, and I got to know better as an acquaintance, and we got to talking, which I will talk about in a minute. And they're not some shifty or like very sketchy or off the beat dealer, or like obtaining their the parts or mechanical operative pieces for, like, obtaining the equipment needed, like, well, whether or not it's obtaining it illegally, I don't know, but I mean, like, I guess I'd say what most people consider unethically, so I'll say that. So it's nothing like that. Anyway, the cons would be that if the bike was to run out of, and these ones are gas powered, again, unfortunately, I wish the dealer would have had some form of electric bicycle Then again, the con of that would be it would probably need a lot more charge, like frequently, than say a gas-powered one. But it'd be better for the environment, so I wouldn't really care at a point. But at least I thought I wouldn't. But anyway, the cons would be that if it ran out of gas, which it did once, actually no, maybe twice. Well, it ran out once while I was in the countryside, and another time while I was in Toronto. But anyway, if it ran out of gas, you'd have to pedal it, which should have been, I was completely fine with, until I realized just with the amount of weight I have and just kind of how the whole thing is gear-wise set up, how much of a pain in the ass this bike also is to pedal, or these types of bikes are, or at the very least this one, which I'll show you in a minute, and I guess I'll demonstrate around here. It should have gas in it. Yeah, it does. Fuck, did I actually... Hold on a second. Okay, yep, no, it's good. It's good. Actually, how long are we going? It'll take 26 minutes. Right. Sorry, for a second I was concerned that I didn't shut off a valve that actually empties out the gas and oil into the chamber of the fuel chamber that goes into the engine, powers it. I was concerned about that, but it is closed. Thank God. I've made that mistake too many times when I was first trying it out. But pedaling it, though it's gotten better in the last few days, I'll say, like it's loosened up a bit, I guess, it's still very much, I'd at points actually say like the pedaling on this is, and maybe some of it is just like the weight on it that I have, but considering this amount of stuff, like the amount of density, I guess, in this bag, and then one that I carry on my shoulder for food and other necessities, and a sleeping bag tied to the back, which conveniently this one has a slab at the back, or a what's the word? It has a platform. It has a long piece of metal at the back that acts as some sort of balancing part of the frame that basically is like where you can tie certain things. It's purposely made that way so that you can put something, attach it to the back. Within reasonable amount of size, of course, but anyway, the con would be if it ran out of gas, I'd have to pedal it, and it's really a piece of crap when you pedal it. And that's not the dealer's fault by any means, or any like their handiwork, which is fantastic, by the way, for the most part. Because at points when it's working well, it works like a charm. But I think it's just like by nature, it can't, like with how it's set up, it's gonna be like clunk, with the fact that it's a bicycle, a standardized bicycle that is hooked up with a gas-powered engine, and the circuitry that is needed for it. I obviously think it's probably by default going to have like a bit more like strenuous kickback when you're trying to pedal it. Like it's going to be a bit more tough around the edges, considering the gears have been fastened with a bunch of other shit tied to it. But anyway, so that was a con. And another con is that you have to the gas only runs for, well, I guess this isn't exactly a con, but if I was going like a very, very long distance without any stretch of like sort of refueling station that I'd be able to come across, it'd be a problem. Because the gas can run, like, the tank can hold a liter of gas. That's how much is in it. So it can last going, like, no stop, a full 3 hours. So I can ride this thing, which I have throughout the countryside for 3 hours, and thank God, at many intervals in this, like, in the Spear of Ontario, at least, and if you don't know what the Spear of Ontario is, like, the Spearhead is the southernmost part of Ontario. It's basically the part that curves into a point at the bottom, and it's the lowest section of Canada that you can get. Well, the lowest section of Canada. The southernmost point of Canada is, well, the city of Windsor in Ontario, which borders Detroit, America, but okay. You can look on a map and you'll see what I mean. If you look at Canada and you look at Ontario, it's the southernmost point that looks like a spearhead. Or a dagger of some kind. Well, yeah, anyway. Thankfully, in the Spearhead of Ontario, there are quite a few gas stations around, or refueling stops. But the con is that it also takes oil. It's literally a liter of gas to 1% oil, as the dealer told me. And that is annoying. And I didn't know why at first, because, again, I have no expertise in mechanical engineering whatsoever. But, though I do follow someone on YouTube who's incredibly interesting, agricultural engineer, it seems, the man who creates strobe beasts. Fantastic inventions, by the way. That'd be basically walking animal-like robots made out of reusable piping and sticks and strings, and they're called strobe beasts. And it's Theo Jensen, I believe, is a Dutch engineer. Really amazing guy, amazing inventor. I don't know how so many people don't talk about his creations. Like, he's been doing it since the 1990s, and it's like, oh, my eyes are itchy. Okay. Really cool, really amazing creations. It'd be so good for reusable energy in terms of agricultural work and farming. I think he also plans to do that. He's planning to just release them onto the beach as well, and I believe Netherlands with it. Anyway, that's a tangent. I don't know why I went off on that. I just wanted to talk about strobe beasts for a sec. Look up strobe beasts if you haven't heard of them. Do it. Or the inventor of them, I should say. But, anyway, and if you see them and you're also a Studio Ghibli fan, I'm just gonna say it. It's basically, strobe beasts are basically like, they're basically Hayao Miyazaki's wet dream come to life. I'll just say that right now. And if you know what I'm talking about, then, well, if you get the joke, you get the joke, whatever. Anyway, where was I? Oh yeah, the bike. It takes a bit of oil, and I didn't know why that was at first until the nephew of the dealer, who I've gotten to know quite well also these last few days, he told me that it's because in a regular, like, motorized vehicle, say like a just a regular car or standardized car that we have, like, mainly here in North America or the West or in Europe or in Africa as well, like in those continents, or semi-trucks, or just any sort of, well, transportation that has a gas-powered engine, they have a separate mechanism most often for oil, or it has a separate pumping mechanism of some kind with gears and well, pulleys and pumps that basically lubricates the engine with oil constantly so that it keeps running. And if it doesn't have that, the gas will basically just be, well, null and void. It won't work. Or the engine won't function properly. So basically, I guess it helps keep it moist. And this small, tiny motor and engine, which is basically, I believe, just rigged up from... They said it came with a kit, like, for hooking up to bicycles, but I believe from other mechanics I've asked around the countryside area who I've had to stop at, it's basically a lawnmower engine, like taken from a motorized lawnmower and converted onto a bike. And basically it's not big enough to have its own mechanism for oiling, so it needs that little bit of oil to filter through the actual fuel gauge, fuel line into the engine so that it can stay lubricated. So yeah, that's annoying. It might not sound annoying, but it is. And because of that, I keep two-stroke oil. Oh, and it specifically takes two-stroke oil. It barely works with other oil because I tried it with actual regular just motor oil from a mechanic when I ran out of fuel. And it ran for maybe like 5 minutes and then conked out. But I carry that here. And it's running at about half mass, so I may need to buy more of that. Or just refuel this one, I don't know. Or refill, not refuel. But anyway, God, I should not be touching my eyes like that. With the sides, considering the gloves I wear got covered in gas the other day, and I haven't had a chance to wash them. But, anyway. Okay, that was a strange neurological response. I felt like I was gonna sneeze, and then I yawned. Anyway. So, I think it's about, what, 30 minutes? Anyway, cutting to more of the story. I stayed at my friend's house, and I went back a few nights later, like in between, just to hang out. And basically I kind of confessed to them that I had a crush on them, somewhat, when I was, well, in the latter half of 12th grade. Which I should probably explain, because I said in the description of the last video that I dropped out of high school, which, if it wasn't apparent by then, well, it should have been. I may or may not save that for another video. You want the short end of the long stick. Basically, don't agree with the system and how in modern times how it's mainly run, not just here but a lot of parts of the world. Didn't think it was useful for me specifically, as well as a lot of my other peers. Had ulterior plans that really didn't coincide with going to post-secondary. Didn't want to go to post-secondary even if I graduated. Had plans to possibly get into these industries that I wanted to, with gaming, sex work, photography, all from where I was, and without going to post-secondary, and possibly without a diploma. And also with the neurological problems and just ailments that I've been facing, and psychologically it was too much, and it was making me feel physically worse, just being there at a school, and I was just tired of the bullshit, just all of it. But I'll get into that at another point, because the school kind of screwed me on something, which started a lot of problems, by the way. Which I'll vocalize very much. Don't know if I can legally say the name of the school, don't know if I want to, but not gonna say names of people, but anyway. I basically confessed to them that I had a crush on them. And they were like, I knew it. And we were maybe going to just actually hook up quick, or hook up, call it. We were basically going to get together for maybe one night or one day before I left the city, but that didn't end up happening. And it's not a problem at all. It's not like well, obviously I'm disappointed in that, because it would have been nice, just for fun. But again, logically speaking, I believe in platonic intimacy, where basically another word for that would be, if you're comfortable with that, with certain people, friends with benefits. And in what my line of work would have been, it would have, well, that would have carried over very much. But things happened. They had some issues going on with their, well, something happened at their house, or something in their immediate life that happened, and they're like, I don't think I'm in the mood today, and that was perfectly fine. Because I had actually said, like, it's whatever you want to do, it's up to you. And only if you're comfortable with it. Absolutely. And so yeah, it's just it was sad that nothing happened before. And again, I'm not just talking about, like, I'm not talking about, oh, sad that nothing sexual happened. I'm just talking about, like, even so much as, like, that comes second to me. Like, with platonic intimacy and things like that, just intimacy in general, whatever it may be, in romantic intimacies, in terms of sexual intimacy, or just intellectual intimacy, I guess to say. Again, I said about something I believe in emotional investment. Like, caring more about, like, the way I see it, no matter what kind of, like, sexual acts you're into, okay, well, this is within reason, obviously, and what I had logically before considered to be ethical acts in this realm, whatever sexual kinks, fetishes, lifestyle you abide by or are into in any way, ethically speaking, and I think most people know the definition of what I'm talking about there. Then again, sex work in general, like, brings up a whole issue of ethics, ethicism, and its very existence anyway. But anyway, the point I'm trying to say is, whatever it may be, other than certain things that I have issues with, I believe in whatever sexual pleasure you're indulging in with someone or multiple people at once. The act of it, the act of the intimacy, or, like, the engagement of, like, the affair, well, not the affair, not like cheating, the affair, I mean, the action, the act of what you're doing should be more important than just your own fucking hedonistic, egocentric pleasure. Like, your own, putting, like, if you believe in a more egoistic philosophy or ideology, it should be more, it's a shared process. So even if you're, like, say, watching porn or something, or pornography, you're still engaging sexually, and I believe intellectually in a sense, with people who are giving their bodies to you on the internet or any sort of video format for you to enjoy for your own pleasure and for your own stimulation. That, I believe, is a form of intellectual stimulation and, well, sexually intimate investment. Like, and I think I should state as well, like, it's why I hate when people, like, even people like that I knew, And I'm not saying, and a lot of people say this is why people shouldn't go into the porn industry or like the sex work industry. And I'm going to say this right now. Yes, this is a problem, but this isn't a problem, like, this is what people don't get. Like, here's another, like, a lot of people thinking this, it's funny, like, a lot of people who seem to have even more, like, idealistic, I guess, viewpoints, they think more pragmatically when it comes to this for some reason, especially in sex work. Is, like, they think, like, they say, like, a problem I really have with a lot of people, even, like, in my close circles, like, they fetishize, like, porn actors, or people in the industry, or in the sex work industry, or prostitutes, or whatever else. And, I tell them, well, yes, but they're people, they're either A, putting on a performance, or they're doing it for your sexual gratification, so that you can have some relaxation or sexual stimulation, just sexual stimulation, relaxation, or escapism, or trying to represent human intimacy, human sexual intimacy in some way, as an art form. Even the other way, it's an art form as well. But then they'll say, oh, come on. When I tell them that, they'll say, oh, come on, Cam, who actually watches it for that? Well, people do. I feel you should, but, and again, to each their own in terms of how you use it, but in a healthy way, I would say that psychologically is better. But anyway, then people are like, oh, this person's so hot, I would love to meet them and bang them, I would love to have a night with them, or whatever else. You do realize, like, they're people too, right? Like, if you, I love how people say they would, like, for pornographic, actors, or even just pornographers in general, even if they're behind the camera or not, or, like, just running a business, pertaining to sex work, they say, like, I would love to have a night with them, like, sexually. Yet, would you do that for a person in the standardized film industry? Or just any other form of entertainment? I don't think so. Well, obviously, yes, there are people who would, but in general, and, like, people say, like, here's another point, like, people, like, I'm talking about with the fetishization of, like, people in sex work. Like, I tell them I really have a problem with it, because they're people as well. Like, wouldn't you also rather get to know the person first, at least, before you bang their brains out? Or, like, literally just getting to know them in general, like, just talking to them as a person, like, not just, like, even before I decided to be in sex work, which I had thought about years before, but then put it aside and thought, nah. And then I went more into, like, writing of films, possibly, or video games, then landed to video games. Then I was like, okay, yeah, I also would like to do sex work, and then photography. That's a whole nother story that I'll get into, but people, like, even before I decided I wanted to go into the field, I would have been, like, with people I enjoyed in the industry, I would love to meet them, actually talk with them in person. I'm not going to, like, ask them, especially in, like, porn field, first blatantly for sex. If they offered it, or if I was curious, like, to say if they were a prostitute, or, like, well, not even that, just, if we got to talking, I was like, hey, you want to, I guess, have sex? If not, okay, and if so, fine. But that wouldn't be the initial thing, like, of why you would talk to them. Say, like, meeting them, like, just in general meeting them. Like, I don't know why that's the drive. Like, okay, anyway, what I was getting at, the fetishization of, like, people in the sex industry. Like, people will tell me, well, that's just society. That's why you shouldn't go into it, because, well, people do that. They dehumanize them, they fetishize them, they put them to this pedestal of idealistic, well, not idealistic, they idolize them to this unrealistic standard of, like, sex and all that, because it's fictional, heavily edited. Even though there is more realistic pornography, it's still fictional. The story-based ones as well, or even not story-based, just having, well, recording, basically. Even many of the educational ones, which unfortunately, well, not unfortunately, there are ones out there that are helpful. But anyway, most of it is fictionalized, and even the more realistic ones, though better that it's realistic, are still fictionalized. Obviously, that goes with any form of entertainment. But my point being is that why that's a point of not going into the industry. That's not a problem with the people in the industry, or at least for the most part. That's a problem with people in society, their perception of it. That's the external problem. That's not a problem with like say if someone was fetishizing, like, let's say okay, I'm just gonna insert me as an example, because I don't know, I could fucking say okay, let's say what's a celebrity who I don't like very much that I can pick on? Okay, let's go, Christian Bale. Okay, yes, before you Bale fanboys attack me, phenomenal actor. He's a great actor. He's a dickhead of a person in real life. From everything that I've seen of him, at least in my opinion, from what has been shown through, again, parasocial relationship, he seems to be a real absolute douchebag. He's a complete narcissist, it seems. Narcissistic personality disorder. Funnily enough, considering he played manic psychopathic narcissist, or somewhat narcissist in Patrick Bateman was, well, he had hefty narcissistic traits, at least in American Psycho. But anyway, bottom line being, he's not the most savory of people. But if someone was fetishizing him, which I don't condone at all, even if I don't like the person, I don't condone that, was fetishizing him for his looks or his acting or whatever else, like his performance, his performative acting, that's not, no matter how he portrays himself, like whether as a person, like in something like this, like a parasocial connection, no matter how he portrays himself, whether someone considers him a dick or a really genuinely nice person, or just he's a bit of a mixed bag, no matter what it is, like say someone is just idealizing him and fetishizing him, that's not Christian Bale, at least in my opinion, that's not Christian Bale's fault. That's the fault of the person who's doing that. And you could say, obviously, what are the factors that cause this person to psychologically have an obsession, or just an encroaching gaze of what an encroaching idea of what he is in their eyes. Obviously, there's factors to that, but that's still out of that person, and that's out of Christian Bale's control. It's not in the immediate. That comes to the people in that person's social life. And if they have no one, like, to guide them away from that, or, like, to maybe talk them out of this unhealthy ideal of a person, well, then that's unfortunate. I don't have an answer to, I don't think that can be fixed. Like, again, my view of how nothing in society can be perfect. I initially thought that it could be better, the world, but not perfect. Closer to it, but never 100%. But I don't know. Maybe. Anyway. My point being... What was my point? Okay, I went off on that tangent about, like, how people fetishize sex workers, or even just people in entertainment for a reason, or YouTubers. Oh yes, investment in sex is what I was saying. I feel like you should no matter what you're into in terms of like sexual prowess, the investment should be in the act you are having intimately with the person, whoever it may be, or with yourself. I feel like, and you're watching something that is arousing, rather than just, okay, so basically like in hookup culture, and I have no problem, and I know there are issues, hold on, actually, let me check what this, hey, yow, that was my knee. Okay, we're almost at an hour. Maybe I'll make this a too much talking twink. No sex work. I don't know. Basically what I was saying was, I'm fine with hookup culture, obviously. Or at least, again, logically, before I was. Emotionally, things are skewed. Okay? Again. I have to make a part 2 to this. What I'm getting at is, if two people hook up, let's say, and I actually kind of talked about this with one of my friends, because I really disagreed with how, like, their behavior is towards something like this. I actually got in a fight with them before I left, but, or before I quit my, actually, I talked about this. I got in a fight with said person. It was a coworker of mine before I quit. But, I disagree with them extensively on this. How basically they said when they hook up with a person, like this person engages in hookup culture on off occasion, well, I guess fairly regularly, which again, I have no problem with, unless either A, you're trying to absolve depression with it, or trying to absolve some form of loneliness, which it won't happen, and it's incredibly toxic and unhealthy. Like, obviously, again, should you have the willing choice to do so? Absolutely. But it's not healthy to use any form of entertainment, not even just sex work, it's not healthy to use any form of entertainment. It can be fine as escapism or a coping mechanism, in my opinion. But to try and relieve loneliness, or absolve it, or depression in it, which there are people that obviously do, especially people who are sex addicts or porn addicts, or any form of addiction actually that stems from anything, is usually a form to absolve lack of human connection or lack of social connection in a way. And that's addiction. That's not just use, that's addiction. I think I should make that distinction. I think it just rhymed. Addiction, distinction. Suck on my intuition. Okay. Fucking, that didn't work. That didn't work at all. Anyway, basically they don't, at least as far as I'm aware, they don't use it to like absolve any sort of thing. They do it to have some fun, like platonic fun and intimacy. But what they use it for is basically their own full self-gratification. Like, obviously they care about what the person's interests are in terms of the act, like what they want to do during it, but like, so that I guess it's pleasurable for both, but they're more concerned with their pleasure. And I could be wrong completely, like they might change their mind, or I might have interpreted it wrong, but I guess this is what I'm saying for people who do also behave like fully in this, who only use, especially seeing the prostitution field, who only use it for their sole self-gratification. To me, like, and you have no emotion, it's not emotional connection like say in a romantic relationship, but investment in the person, realizing that you're doing something physically very, well, sentiment and special with them, or very sensual. And it is something that is, well, cherishable. I mean, it's a very powerful, neurological and muscular response in the physiological form. And psychologically, it is, well, in a healthy mindset, at least I'd say, it's powerful. It's a powerful connection, sex. That's why it can be both incredibly joyful and incredibly destructive. But anyway, basically, the point I'm getting at is, if you're just using it for your own if you're doing it with someone for your own self-gratification solely, or even so much as, I guess even to an extent, watching porn or going on campsites for, like, webcamming, solely for your own gratification, well, obviously, that's yourself. Like, but again, you have no investment in what's being seen, what you're seeing. To me, that's kind of like, it's actually, especially if it's with a physical person that you're banging and you're having coitus with, I would genuinely say that's basically like, you're just using someone and throwing them aside like trash. Now, that might sound harsh, mainly because I guess I kind of did mean it harshly, but it's kind of like, you're basically just using the person. And I find it so odd that people, like, and I'm not trying to sound full of myself with this opinion, but like, people who genuinely are more left-leaning on, like, the political spectrum, who are more for inclusion, equality, or equity, and, like, social connection, in a sense, like, in terms of sociology, but yet, when it comes to, like, people's rights for sex work and engaging in that, it's like, no, it's my own self-gratification. Now, then again, this person who I talked to, like, we get into long talks about, like, socialism and communism and things like that, and other left-leaning ideologies. And generally, they believe that form of, like, eco-political system or ideology would bring about more, like, self-interest in terms of hedonistic value or egoistic type lifestyle, which I do agree with, like, in a sense. Like, I believed in, like, something, like, again, that I called self-maintaining altruism, basically having your own self-interest whilst helping others achieve their goals as well. That's why I believe in libertarian communism, basically in the system where the government operates. That's another thing. People get confused, I think, when I say, like, libertarian, like, oh, you're a mass capitalist. That's not what libertarian means. And it also doesn't mean anarchy, like a lot of people think. Like, libertarianism... Okay, I'll say this. Libertarianism is closer to anarchy than anything else, I'd say, in, like, in a government-organized system of some way, or an ideology of government. But libertarianism is basically this, like, the initial idea. The governmental system that has been set up functions under democratic principles, the principles of democracy, such as, say, freedom of speech, freedom of press, freedom to assemble, freedom of debate, public debate, freedom of opportunity, or, well, equal opportunity as well. What are the other democratic principles that I'm missing right now? Okay, free and fair elections in terms of an electoral system or something like that. Basically, just the freedom to coincide with difference, I guess. Like, the democratic principles are set. A governmental system is set up under the principles of democracy, but functions outside primarily of the internal structuring of society. Now, people say we're already in that pretty well, but no, we're really not. Like, a governmental system that is not encroaching upon its populace with mass surveillance or a lot more encroaching technology in terms of, like, surveillance on, like, mass media corporations, on internet use, or other things like that. Mass surveillance in terms of cameras and security wiring along public businesses or parkways. Mass patrols of police units, like, say, like, it would be monitoring a minimalist police force or unit of some kind and restructuring the way that policing is done in a sense. So again, to as minimalist effect as possible. Not null and void police, but minimalist. So that they're not patrolling every part of like a constant patrolling force in like society, which exists if people don't want to believe that, especially in communities affected by, say, systemic racism, which is very much real for those of you who don't believe it. Like, there are those who will argue with me on that, but that's a topic for another time. That systemically, like, that certain groups based on color or their actual ethnicity are like oppressed in many societies, which they are. Like, go to Toronto, go to like literally the fucking West Hill area, just down a ways on Denzing Road, or even close to like Cedarbrae area. Look at the affected, like how large the impoverished communities are, and see how much. And again, this is not at all me saying that people in black or brown or Latino communities are all poor. They're not. That's not what I'm saying at all. There are many communities that are Caucasian and white that are incredibly impoverished, especially in many Eastern European countries and here, but just the United States and Canada as well. Canada more so, I'd say the indigenous communities too, but basically what I'm saying is go to that area, those areas, and tell me, like, in terms of disparity, like demographic disparity, how much more people of color you would see in these situations and these communities, like, that are very much, the infrastructure is underfunded and incredibly just in shambles. Like, community funding is broken, and there's just no, it's just completely devoid of any sort of support economically to try and better things. And it just, the surrounding areas are, and architecture of the community is crumbling, and like the installation of homes and housing and like the actual health and safety regimens. Like, go to those areas and tell me, like, how many people of color you see compared to like people who are white. And again, this is not every community. There are many communities that are people of color and also different ethnic groups or religious groups and so on and so on that are not in that situation. There are many of them that are thriving and doing incredibly well because they've pushed through mass struggle to try and actually get their communities to a better stance than where they were. But I'm just saying, overall, see which ones are affected more. Like, it's so incredible, like, people who say, like, and there are even people who I follow who disagree with the fact of, like, systemic racism. And again, I'm fine, and some of them, they make good points. Obviously, I don't agree with everything that people I follow say. I agree with them for other things, but definitely not that. But I follow them mainly because, well, they're interesting people, and because I feel like they do make many good points on certain things. That's why I felt like I have, and again, this isn't a brag, but if you look into my channel section of, I guess, who I follow, it's kind of a plethora of a whole bunch of different viewpoints, different stances, because I'm interested in that, I guess. Well, I am, of hearing other people's opinions, and actually, like, and they're not all bad people just because they have a fucking opposite view. But even then, like, moralistically, another reason for this whole morality crisis is I don't know anymore if people can actually coincide, it seems like. Another thing about libertarianism was, or at least libertarian communism was, okay, the principles of libertarianism are that, I'd say, like, the government operating outside of the external inner workings of society and not encroaching or hovering over this populace constantly. Libertarian communism would basically be that, but instead of not having an involvement in the economic ring of things, like, it wouldn't have an involvement in libertarianism in economic, educational, which I disagree with the educational one, but educational and social structuring of society. Libertarian communism basically functions under, the democratic principles operating outside of the internal structuring of a social environment, while maintaining some form of regulation over the markets in some form, and also privatize property and land and all that, trying to set up systems that actually would control pricing and try and equalize wealth or redistribute currency in terms of wage income in a certain amount, yada yada yada, or at least as equal as it possibly can be, blah blah blah, whatever else. That's basically why I called myself a libertarian communist, and logically, again, still believe it. But what I was saying was, I don't know. With everything going on, I don't. Even with the incredibly nice things, which I'm going to split this up into 2 parts, because fucking hell, I'm going over an hour again. There was more to this story of how I fucking ended up in Peterborough. I'll show the bike in the next video. Oh yeah, shut up. Laugh at me all you want, you damn crow. Actually, no, you got a better life than me. You can fly. Yeah. Yeah, be free. Oh, and a seagull. Whoa. Dive bomb. Don't get close. Okay. Oh, what did I do to you? Okay. That was a bit of a schizophrenic episode there. I was just talking to a bird, or hearing a bird's voice speaking to me. That was a joke, for anyone concerned. That was a joke. Offensive joke, but it was a joke. That's not negating the severity of schizophrenia or anything. Okay. I shouldn't say that, I guess, because I study psychology, but... I see less and less how... Or at least recently I've seen less and less how we can ever actually get to a place, at the very least, in terms of humanity, of peacefulness. Again, as much as it can possibly be, because it'll never be perfect. But something better than this in terms of coexistence. Without fucking murdering each other. Or living in unhealthy ways and destroying one another. How we can actually disagree on things and yet still actually change things while disagreeing peacefully. Like, I got into a whole debate with someone again about how I don't believe in violence as a means of anything except for an immediate self-defense, even in protesting. I still logically stand by that, because there have been instances where it did work in the past, despite what they may think. And as well as, violence, at least I thought before, really made you no better than the people perpetrating it in the first place. Like, if you used it just as a means, for gratification for the horrors that have been brought upon you, emotionally to satisfy yourself, or even as a first means to free yourself. But again, there are certain scenarios where an immediate self-defense act would be more imminent, which is a good point they brought up on their part. It could be more imminent in a protesting situation. Anyway, that was a rant. I'm going to split this up into 2 parts, so hold on a sec. Watch the next one for the rest. Oh, God.